This chapter is on positivity and happiness. What is happiness? Well, it can be many different things to many people, sometimes depending on your background. To many people, it is a two-pronged experience, which would include positive emotions and a sense of satisfaction. Some people may experience happiness when they're doing something good. To a brain scientist, happiness is defined as a feeling that is accompanied by hormones that are released in your brain that prolong survival. A religious person may equate happiness with the presence of God. Another person may simply believe that happiness comes from the absence of pain. Depending on who you are, your definition of happiness might be different. Now, at this point, we need to step back and look at two different components here: pleasure and happiness. So pleasure is a basic emotion. It's a reward for a positive action. Whereas happiness is a secondary emotion which originates in the brain. And it's actually something that happens in your brain when you reflect on pleasure. So pleasure is easily obtained. Happiness, maybe not so much. Let's keep that in mind as we continue in this lesson. So worksheet 21 asks us to determine what gives you pleasure. Now remember, pleasure is a very basic emotion. So what gives you pleasure? It could be something like going to the movies, or walking the dog, or playing with your grandchild. So what you would do is you would name those activities that give you pleasure. And then you would rate how that activity makes you feel, or how happy you think that activity would make you feel. So for example, going to the movies, you would say, I think when I go to the movies, I'd give that 8 out of 10. Then you would go to the movies or do this activity, and then you would actually rate how happy it made you feel after you were done. So maybe you might have said it was 8, but after you finished, you might actually give it a 5 because you forgot that there's lines and people, and maybe you didn't even like the movie. Well, the purpose of this worksheet is to help you identify those things that truly make you happy, and those are the types of things that you'll want to include in your life. Remember, pleasure is the basic component. Happiness is what happens in your brain. So while you may think something gives you pleasure, if it doesn't make you happy, it's not doing the job. All right, now there are certain theories that are covered in this reading, and one of them is a set point for happiness. Do we have a set point for happiness? Some researchers suggest that we do. Notice that some people that are naturally happy and some that are naturally grumpy. Data suggests that even with extreme pleasure, winning the lottery, falling in love, at a certain amount of time, your brain settles down to a set point. And the time mentioned in research is about 3 months. So yeah, you could win the lottery, win $10 million, but after 3 months, you're about as happy as you were before you won the lottery. That's an interesting point. Research does suggest that there's one way to set the happiness set point higher, and that is helping others. True altruism, helping others with no thought of getting anything back. And that actually made people happier in the long run. In fact, it appears that altruism doesn't just correlate with more happiness, it actually causes happiness in the short term. Why? Why does altruism make us happy? Well, possibly it makes us happy by when we create more value for others, when we help someone, then our self-esteem is enhanced along with our self-purpose. And so the good feelings that accompany this creates our happiness. Remember, as we've said a few times today, happiness is really just in your head. It's not, the pleasure is what happens first, but it's the happiness that lingers in the brain. And so by practicing altruism, helping someone with no thought of getting anything back to yourself, you're actually creating happiness in your brain. Other ways that you could cultivate happiness. Well, first, redefine your own sense of happiness. Do you have to be rich? Do you have to be good looking? You have no control over that. Maybe just go for peace of mind or freedom from craving or anger. Another way to cultivate happiness is to experience more things in life, even if they come with challenges. Forgive people more. Recent studies have shown that when we forgive those that have wronged us, we feel better, we experience more positive emotions, and we feel closer to others. Or you can embrace what you have. Instead of always striving for something that's out of the picture, just be happy with what you have. Enjoy the present, enjoy the here and now, instead of always thinking about the past or thinking about the future. And do the thing that you've always wanted to do. Researchers find that when you do that, you seldom regret the changes that you made in order to do this thing. So take that trip to Italy or move into that new home. Whatever it was that you've always wanted to do it. You won't regret it. Okay, now there's another theory that's discussed in our readings, and that is synthetic versus natural happiness. So natural happiness is what we are when we get what we want. So, I really want to get this new job, and I get this new job, so I'm happy. Synthetic happiness is what we make when we don't get what we want. So you don't get that new job. So instead of being unhappy about it, you say, you know what? I really like my job. I think it's a pretty good job, and I'm pretty lucky to have this job. In that case, you are creating happiness out of what you have. So that's two different things. Synthetic happiness is when someone takes something that is available to them and decides that's what they want. It works best when there's no way to reverse the decision. So researchers found that people were more happy when they made choices when there was no way to after a period of time, to change their decision. They also found that synthetic happiness works best when there were boundaries that restricted additional possibilities. So in other words, you make the best with what you have. You can't change your decision. When you have it, it's there. And that is when people are most happy. So next we get to our brain and some ways that we can maybe train our brain for positivity, because positivity is related to happiness. So there are several things that were mentioned in the readings. One of them is a gratitude type of response. So at the end of the day, you recall some good things that happened during that day. That will make your brain more positive. A positive shout out. Send a nice note to someone. Exercise will help your brain to be more positive. An activity with moderate intensity, and actually an activity that involves going outside, because that does help with positivity. Meditation has been very useful in helping your brain to become more positive. Maybe if nothing else, it's just allowing you to live in the present and not focus on those things that you don't have or want to get. And then random acts of kindness will always help your brain become more positive. Okay, so for your homework for this week, there are actually 2 techniques that are suggested. And if you could try both of these techniques, you may walk out of the week in a more positive frame of mind. So the first is the gratitude. Each day, write down 3 things that you're grateful for. The second technique is a random note. So take one person and one occasion and write that random note to that person, whether it be a thank you note for something they did, a congratulations for something they've achieved, or a comfort note for something that they've lost. Now, there are ways to use your body language to act more positive. So researchers found in one example, when subjects tensed their muscles, it was able to help them avoid junk food. And then another study found that a confident pose released higher levels of testosterone, which suggests that just body language can alter your hormonal release. So let's take that into certain types of body languages that can transfer into emotion. If you want to feel more happy, smile. If you want to demonstrate more willpower, tense your muscles into a fist, like that research suggested. If you want to feel confident, assume a dominant pose. Maybe put your feet on the desk or stand taller. You could actually feel younger by hanging out with younger people. I don't know how helpful that is for all of us, but that might make you feel younger. You can show that you're persistent by sitting up straight and crossing your arms. So if you're in a negotiating position, maybe buying that new car, sit up straight and cross your arms. That's going to show that you are going to stick to your guns. And you could persuade someone by nodding. If you're nodding, then they're thinking that you're agreeing with them, and they may be more inclined to follow your suggestion. In your readings, you see this picture. This just shows you different types of body languages and what would be preferable to others. So openness, you're taking up a lot of space. If you're defensive, you're crossing the arms and legs. If you're expecting something good, you can demonstrate it in one way. If you're frustrated, you show a different way. So you might want to look at some of these pictures and try to bring them to your mind next time you're bored. Try to change that body language so your speaker doesn't suspect that you're bored. So some additional thoughts. If you want to appear more open, don't cross your arms and your legs. It's always good to have eye contact, but don't stare at someone. That would appear that you're drifting off into space. To show self-confidence, take up more space. Open up your legs, lean more towards your person. If you are feeling a little stressed, relax your shoulders, sit up straight and keep your head up. If you want to show that you agree with the person, lean towards that person you're talking with. And while you're listening, keep your mind positive if you can. Now, some final notes on this class. This is our last class. It was an 8-session class, and this course is based on many different psychologists with the key emphasis Dr. David Burns. Now, you could find him, you could Google him on the internet, you can go to the bookstore and look for some of his books. For example, 10 Days to Self-Esteem or Feeling Good. Those are 2 books that he's written that are very popular and have done a lot to help people change the way they think. I discovered this when I took a class through Kaiser Permanente called Rapid Recovery. And this used many of these techniques and was a source of inspiration for this class.